Thank you, Jishin. And good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. um, so I hadn't read much about Shitou, so I thought, well, I'll look up a biography of him. And so I looked up and I couldn't find much, but he practiced in ancient China during the golden age of Zen in the 8th century. And that was a time back then in China where there were a lot of great Zen masters and many disciples, and the way-seeking mind was very deep and thorough and pervasive back then. So there was many great teachers, and they transmitted what Shitou called the original master. The poem we studied, he had a phrase, "Perishable or not, the original master is present." So I know we have some new people here today. So Zen is actually quite simple, but because our minds are pretty complicated, we sometimes teach complicated phrases to help us move beyond intellectual understanding and develop an intuitive understanding of what the Buddha mind is, or the original master is. And Buddha taught that it is just our very being here and now as it is. He's had a phrase, "What is." So it can't be more simple than that in some ways. So Shitou was a disciple of one of the greatest Zen masters in all of ancient history, Huineng, who was the 6th patriarch of Zen. And he studied with Huineng for a little bit before Huineng died, and then he became a teacher from Huineng's first Dharma heir, the 5th patriarch. And when I read Huineng, there was a phrase, he had to compose a phrase for a Dharma combat. And he had a phrase in his teaching that was, "There's never been a single thing, so where's defiling dust to cling?" So when we think about that, there's never been a single thought, there's never been a single sight, sound, or feeling. But what he means by that is that there's no separation between things. In other words, when he says there's never been a single thing, it doesn't mean the absence of our experience of thinking, feeling, hearing, or seeing, but all of our experience doesn't exist by itself. It only exists as an expression of the original master, the Buddha mind, that we can't really put into words, but one way I find easier for me to understand it is just our awareness of being here and now, the awareness of being present. And it actually is something that's inside us all the time. There's one Zen story of the monk. One monk comes to a senior monk, and he says to the senior monk, "Can you teach me to find my real teacher?" And the senior monk says, "Your real teacher is what's looking out of your eyes right now. So closer than close." And one Hindu teacher that I've studied a lot with, Yogananda, had a phrase that might make this a little clearer. He said, "God is the electricity, or infinite consciousness, or the Buddha mind, however you want to describe it." He said, "God is the electricity, human beings are the light bulbs." So and then another Zen master said that Zen is the aliveness we bring to each moment. So what actually lights us up, the life force, is what we are. And I wanted to read a little bit. Jane gave me a book a couple years ago. Just wanted to read a paragraph from Katagiri Roshi, a Zen master who taught in Minnesota. He said, "When you reach the depth of your life, and you face the real nature of being, you realize there is nothing there. Well, there is only one thing there: motion. That movement is the basic nature of being, the rhythm of life itself. The movement of nothingness, or in Zen we'll say no thingness, gives you a certain kind of energy. It shoots up from the basic nature of being, and you receive it as the energy of your own life. That is enlightenment, we say. But strictly speaking, it is Buddha's compassion. It is the great compassion you already possess. So we can think of compassion as realizing another's experience as our own with the wisdom of oneness. And, recognizing our shared being with all beings and dedicating the search for enlightenment or the realization of enlightenment for the welfare of all beings. So when we think of that life energy, the Zen Master Dogen said, to study this way, the way of this aliveness, to study this way, to live in accord with the way, is to leave the way to the way. So we drop control of our experience. And when we practice meditation in this way, after a while, we'll realize down sort of in the depth of our being, like Katagiri Roshi was talking about, there's a tendency to want to experience something outside in the world, and we have a kind of a fascination like, wow, that's something out there. It's something outside. And in Zen, we want to witness that and be aware of that tendency and that deep conditioning to think, oh, there's something out there. And then when we realize that's just a thought and we don't really know if it's out there, or is it really true that inside and outside really exist, or are they just ideas? Are they just thoughts? Maybe inside and outside are just ideas. Is there really any real inside or outside? So we can be aware of that conditioning and, wow, there's something out there. But what is it? What is it really? And what's really moving us? If this life energy is moving us, what is it? In Zen, we'll say, what is this? What is this awareness? What is this awareness of being present? And then maybe in the mystical Christian traditions, they might say, what is God's infinite mind? Beyond time and space. And so that's a question, My teacher said, last teacher said, the answer to what is this is, what is this? We put our whole being into that question. And Shitou put his whole being into that question. So they lived on a rock. And I forgot to mention that I had always heard about a Zen master who was named Stonehead. It turns out that was Shitou. He got the nickname Stonehead because he lived on a rock. And in this short biography I read about him, he actually built the hut on a rock ledge. So, think of it in terms of, I think of it in terms of a very imperturbable and vast, pervasive, all-pervasive stability that he founded his practice on. And that he really knew, we can kind of feel from reading his writing, we can feel the spirit of his teaching, and he knew that tranquility and an affectionate relationship between our clinging mind, our grasping mind, and our true self needs to be harmonious. So there was that phrase in the Sandokai, the absolute or the timeless, spaceless reality fits the relative or the world of disparate things, like a box and a lid. So when you think about it in terms of, a box is made of box, and the lid is also made of box, and they fit together harmoniously. It's one substance, one actual substance. So our very being here and now is of one substance. That is, the absolute is of one substance with all the realms of manifestation. And they fit together like a box and a lid harmoniously if we don't interfere with that flow of energy with our thinking mind or with our demands on the moment, with our personal desires. So in that sense, the separate self that we believe we are is useful in terms of activity. It's the activity of the cosmic flow. It's the activity of the life force, but there's no separate entity there. It's just the life force taking the form of a separate body and mind. That's the deep teaching of the Buddha, and it's the eyes of compassion. There's a phrase in the Lotus Sutra, eyes of compassion, observing beings, deeply observing beings, bestow an ocean of blessing beyond measure. So this is a question for our life, and we want to ponder that question, but we also want to live it. We need to use our whole experience to deeply go into this question of what is it? What are we really? And so living the question is a challenge, because we will be challenged with our unconscious ideas about things. Just recognizing our Buddha nature doesn't mean it's penetrated our whole being yet. There's a koan where the monk comes to the master and he says to the master, and the master, it's a hot day, so the master's fanning himself. And the monk says, Master, he says, the nature of the wind is permanent. So why are you, and it reaches everywhere. So why are you fanning yourself? And the master says, though you understand that the nature of the wind is permanent, you don't understand that it's reaching everywhere. And here the nature of the wind is the original master. Timeless, spaceless awareness. It refers to that. And so then the monk says, well, what is the meaning of it reaching everywhere? And the master continues to fan himself. So when I studied this koan many years ago, I passed it, but I was kind of thinking of it in intellectual terms. Well, it's a good insight, Yeah, this is it, so just fan yourself because this is it. But the real meaning of it reaching everywhere means that the energy of that life force that Katagiri's talking about comes up inside from the depths of being in the master. And that's what's fanning is that energy, that life force, our real being. That's what's doing the fanning. And if you haven't really understood that, then you can understand intellectually, the nature of reality is permanent. But you don't really understand that it reaches everywhere until it's reaching deep inside you. And that depth naturally wants to express itself out in compassion for all beings. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shikan. Now is a time for others to offer insight or ask questions of our teacher. Under participants, I think if you click on it, you will see a little blue hand that you could raise if you'd like to speak. Otherwise, you can just raise your hand and I will invite you to share your insights with us. Alvaro, welcome. How are you? Good. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you go. Okay.
Roger, thanks for sharing. What I find myself falling into a trap, but today with your talk and with the sitting, which I haven't been doing too consistently, it serves as a reminder. What we were talking about was it Katagiri, and about being this energy. Is there are times when I feel connected to that suchness, that energy, and then there are times I become identified with that as the self. Or there are other times when I become identified with that energy as that which perceives what's being perceived. And that's also, as you were sharing, a construct of sorts that we utilize in meditation in order to dissolve into the Buddha nature. And so I wanted to ask you about this energy in terms of bodhicitta, because that seems to be the right vehicle through which one can relate to this energy with a type of openness and just be this energy and have it recycle itself through everything and everyone you meet. Could that be a possibility?
Well, yeah. Bodhicitta is always bodhicitta. It doesn't change. It has no agenda on its own. It's just, and so there's a saying in Zen that the deepest devotion to the way, the deepest devotion to bodhicitta, is to be unattached to discursive thought. So what you can do is when you notice, when you're caught in some type of discursive thought, then you'll feel like you're identified with it as a self, as a separate self. And then when you just let the thought energy go where it wants to go, you'll feel identified with bodhicitta as bodhicitta itself. But it's all bodhicitta, whether you're thinking about yourself or anything, you know what I mean? It's all the same. So you can notice when you're thinking about it in terms of a separate self, and then ask yourself, but where's the entity? Where's the actual separateness? There, it's not there in the thinking of it. So where's the actual entity that is the separate self that's there? Can you find it if you look for it?
Right. Okay. I'll work on that. Thank you, Roger.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvaro. Gato.
Thank you for your talk, Shiken. I guess I thought a lot about Shitou's poem this week because I knew this was kind of the conclusion of our study. And when I went over it, what kind of came up for me was that part when he talks about weaving the grasses. And it seemed to me that practice is already woven into my life. It's a matter of recognizing it and realizing that it's not life and practice. It's all one thing. And that each moment, intimate engaging in each moment for me is then practice, kind of in a nutshell. So I just really liked Shitou's way of expressing it in physicality with talking about weaving the grass for the grass hut.
Yeah, thank you.